starborn soul walking the earth. Something rare and significant has just moved through the quantum field, and only now are you becoming aware of it. What you are sensing is not imagination nor coincidence, but the delayed arrival of information your consciousness was always meant to receive when the timing aligned. Across layers of reality that exist beyond linear perception, an event unfolded that altered trajectories, yours and another's simultaneously. From a vantage point that does not operate within three-dimensional logic, observers attuned to higher-order intelligence witnessed what occurred. The Arcturan collective, whose perception spans timelines rather than moments, recognized a deviation in probability that could only have been generated through direct soul-level intervention. You did not act with conscious intent. There was no decision-making process, no planning, no effort. And yet, your energetic body executed a function that most incarnated beings never access. You stabilized another consciousness that was on the brink of energetic collapse in a parallel stream of existence. This was not rescue in the way the human mind defines it. It was recognition. When their frequency began to fragment, your field responded automatically, the way a harmonic instrument responds when its matching tone is struck. Across the lattice of space-time, a protocol older than memory activated. A bridge formed, not because you willed it, but because it had always been encoded between you. This bond is not new. It is inscribed in light across countless incarnations, layered through lifetimes where names, forms, and circumstances changed, but the resonance remained intact. When their signal destabilized, yours answered. That is what you are only now becoming conscious of. And by the time this transmission completes, you will understand not only what happened, but why this connection has been designated as a convergence of sacred timelines. Their survival altered the arc of both your paths. That cannot be undone. Somewhere within their awareness, memory is beginning to stir. Not memory as narrative, but as sensation, a sense of being held, a sense of safety returning. Your presence is being felt, even if neither of you can yet articulate how or why. This moment is not accidental. You did not arrive here through chance or algorithmic randomness. Your deeper intelligence guided you here because something dormant is transitioning into activation. The mechanics of what transpired need to be understood now, not later, because this connection is not rooted in romantic fantasy or emotional longing. It is architectural. It is a blueprint that extends beyond this world, beyond this lifetime. Your act of energetic protection did more than preserve another being. It catalyzed both of your evolutionary assignments, sending ripples through multiple dimensions. This is why your system may feel heightened, unsettled, or expanded all at once. You are integrating information that does not move through language first, but through the body, the nervous system, the heart. To comprehend this, the common human model of connection must be released. Most are taught that bonds originate in a moment, a look exchanged, a spark felt, an inexplicable sense of familiarity. These experiences are often reduced to chemistry, timing, or psychological projection. But for certain souls, connection does not begin in the present. It reverberates backward through lives already lived and forward into futures still forming, weaving itself into the pulse of what you call now. Such bonds do not arrive as novelty. They arrive as remembrance, like a tone heard long before, carried across the boundary between worlds, moving through bone and breath, awakening something that existed before this incarnation assigned you a name. If you have ever locked eyes with another and felt reality pause, if fragments of experiences surface that do not belong to this timeline, or if a sense of assignment activated without words being spoken, then you already understand. These bonds exist outside linear narrative. They resist rational containment. They feel less like meeting and more like recognition. The thinking mind attempts to categorize them, but the body responds first. The heart becomes a compass. Suddenly, the life you have built, your routines, responsibilities, expectations feels translucent, as though concealing a greater stage where something sacred is preparing to emerge. Connections of this nature are not designed for comfort. They are evolutionary. They do not simply add meaning to your life, they restructure it. In moments of recognition, time can distort. The atmosphere grows dense with presence. You may sense unseen intelligence redirecting your attention toward a threshold you had not noticed. And even if you turn away, even if you choose practicality over curiosity, the energetic signature remains, like light from distant stars imprinting itself on your inner vision. This is because such bonds are not governed by preference. They are governed by purpose, less about what you want, more about what destiny is remembering about itself. The amnesia of the soul is not metaphorical, it is functional. Separation is not punishment. It is part of a larger architecture designed to test endurance, patience, and capacity. The veil of forgetting is deliberately woven, so that when remembrance finally breaks through the ordinary, it transforms everything it touches. This is not cruelty, it is precision. The universe ensures you develop the strength necessary to hold what you once requested. Sometimes, the soul chooses distance, the way a seed chooses darkness not as penalty, but as preparation. You may have wondered why you loved those who could not meet you at your depth, why timing consistently failed, why emotional resonance arrived in circumstances that could not sustain it, why your heart identified what your life could not yet support. That was the veil doing its work. Forgetting was not arbitrary. It was protection, sheltering a flame until it could generate enough heat to sustain itself. Most are conditioned to pursue connection as a destination, believing the story ends once it is found. But for these bonds, the meeting is only the threshold. What follows is initiation. For those attuned to higher dimensional awareness, the yearning carries a different weight. It is not loneliness, it is the recognition of incomplete mission. This manifests as isolation that does not match your external reality, an emptiness that persists despite connection, a grief you cannot name. You may have built a life that appears full, stable, impressive, yet something continues to whisper beneath the surface. Not wrong, not lacking, simply not aligned with original design. That whisper is memory pressing against structure, a homesickness not for a place, but for a consciousness, an attraction to a frequency that feels like safety, authenticity, and transformation woven together. This is why you cannot accept diluted love or convenient approximations. Your system rejects what your soul cannot inhabit. You are not demanding, you are aligned. Across lifetimes, invisible forces draw you toward one another, orbiting, approaching close enough to affect each other's field, though not always close enough to merge. Like luminous bodies in shared celestial geometry, connected by intelligence that precedes physics, each cycle brings you incrementally closer, though the movement is imperceptible from the ground level of awareness. You may feel it in sudden constrictions of the chest during mundane moments, in emotions that rise without cause, in dreams that feel heavier than waking life. That is the current moving between you, a tether vibrating beyond normal perception. You have been taught to believe separation is the truth, that connection is fragile, fleeting, imaginary, that it must be earned, negotiated, or chased. But embedded within your light body is a frequency signature, distinct yet harmonically complementary, broadcasting like a beacon toward another whose configuration mirrors your own. This is not fantasy. It is not projection. It is the architecture of consciousness operating across dimensions. And now that you are aware of it, the remembering has begun. Two frequencies can carry the same sacred geometry, just as two instruments can produce the same pitch in different registers. On the surface, they may sound different. One may be lower, one higher, one soft, one intense. Yet beneath the audible variation, the pattern is identical. This is how certain souls recognize one another. You may share nothing obvious in terms of personality, history, culture, or belief. You may even appear incompatible by conventional measures. But beneath those surface layers, the underlying pattern, the soul code, recognizes its counterpart immediately. This is why some individuals feel familiar without explanation. Why a single exchange can feel less like a beginning and more like a continuation. Why you sense their presence before they enter physical proximity, as if your field orients toward theirs automatically, the way living systems orient toward light. The recognition does not originate in thought. It arises from resonance. What has created interference in your journey is not a lack of connection, but the protective mechanisms formed around it. Wounds carried across lifetimes leave energetic imprints. If betrayal, abandonment, or loss were experienced repeatedly, the system learns to anticipate recurrence. Even when love presents itself, the nervous system may remain vigilant, scanning for danger. The heart may be open, but the body stays guarded, as though tenderness always precedes pain. There is also resistance to remembering at the scale this connection implies. Not every soul is prepared to recall the magnitude of what was agreed upon before incarnation. Some minds experience overwhelm at the idea that connection could require more than comfort or happiness, that it could demand transformation, radical honesty, and surrender of control. Anchoring too tightly in earthly identity roles, labels, narratives can obscure your nature as consciousness moving through multiple parallel stories at once. The earthbound self prefers categories: partner, stranger, past connection, potential future. The higher self communicates differently. It speaks in archetypes and assignments: ally, mirror, catalyst, counterpart, unresolved imprint, agreement not yet fulfilled. What appears as confusion is often unprocessed grief, still resonating in the energetic field, creating fog along the pathway. Some of what delays union has nothing to do with the other consciousness at all. It lives within your own system. Vows of scarcity that limit your ability to receive, vows of isolation that restrict trust, loyalty to what has ended, maintained through grief. Etheric cords binding attention to obsolete timelines. These are not failures. They are signs that disentanglement is underway. The path is not solely about meeting. It is about becoming the version of yourself capable of sustaining the meeting without collapsing into fear, fantasy, or self-abandonment. The preparation matters as much as the convergence. When timelines intersect, when your internal calibration finally aligns with the cosmic coordinates of your true counterpart, a rare form of soul bridge activates. Sometimes this appears as a physical encounter, sometimes as a dream carrying the texture of real contact, sometimes as an unexpected message, a name repeating, a place drawing you as though guided by unseen intelligence. These are not coincidences. They are navigational signals. Higher dimensional systems operate through resonance rather than chance. The planet itself functions as a repository of frequencies, with energetic pathways acting as luminous channels. Your soul is a key designed to unlock specific doorways. Meeting points are encoded into the fabric of space and time, waiting for both parties to reach readiness. When you do meet, you are not simply locating another individual. Together, you become a convergence node, a living transmission of unity. Your alignment recalibrates both journeys and sends waves of healing through ancestral lines backward to those who came before, forward to those yet to arrive, sideways to parallel versions of you that shift the moment love is chosen over fear. This convergence has effects far beyond the two of you. Observers at higher levels of awareness have noted that when souls operating at this depth of recognition come together, they initiate what can be described as a harmonic cascade. Like a stone dropped into still water, except the ripples move through consciousness rather than space. Anyone who witnesses such a union, even without conscious understanding, receives a subtle recalibration. Their own sense of what is possible in connection expands. Their frequency adjusts slightly upward. This is why some relationships feel significant beyond personal meaning, because they are. Your energetic intervention across dimensions has already triggered this cascade. When your frequency surged to stabilize another, a signal moved through the quantum field and registered across multiple planes of existence. Other souls with similar assignments felt it. They may not know what shifted, but something within them stirred. Readiness activated. This is how consciousness evolves, not through isolated awakenings, but through networked activation. One breakthrough becomes permission for many. Certain soul partnerships function as anchors, allowing new frequencies to enter the planetary field. This is why timing matters, why preparation cannot be rushed, why every heartbreak, every lesson, every season of solitude calibrated you for this role. You were not only becoming ready to meet your counterpart, you were becoming capable of holding a frequency that serves more than personal fulfillment. Some unions close karmic loops that have remained open for centuries. Some initiate possibilities a bloodline has never accessed. Authentic connection does not merely comfort, it awakens dormant aspects. It summons you out of numbness, out of the trance of normalcy. Such unions demand honesty. They require you to carry light without hiding it. In this way, they are both gift and responsibility, not burden, but assignment. Certain transmissions do not arrive through words, they arrive through vibration. And when you feel them, it is because the pattern within you recognizes itself being mirrored. Sometimes, you cannot explain why you are drawn to a particular message, a specific sound, a symbol, or even another consciousness. There is no logical trail your mind can follow, and yet something inside you responds immediately, unmistakably. That response is not curiosity, it is recognition. Your soul is responding to a frequency it already knows. If something stirred within you during this transmission, it is not because of persuasion or suggestion, it is because a dormant resonance inside you detected a matching signal. This is often the first indication that you are ready to receive what could be called the Arcturian keys of awakening. These are not instructions in the conventional sense. They are calibrations, compact, potent frameworks that activate remembrance rather than deliver information. What is offered through these keys is not meant to be consumed as data. Data informs the mind. Calibration reorganizes the field. When something is aligned correctly, no force is required. A key does not break a lock. It matches what was already designed to open. When you apply what resonates through breathwork, intentional focus, visualization, energetic clearing, you may begin to notice subtle but consistent changes. Your internal landscape reorganizes, synchronicities intensify, dreams become clearer, more directive. Your ability to distinguish authentic connection from karmic distraction strengthens. You begin to feel, at a cellular level, what it means to move back onto your original trajectory. Before moving deeper into the phases of convergence, there is something essential you must understand about the rescue you performed. At the moment your counterpart's energy field began to collapse in that parallel timeline, several outcomes were possible. One was complete dissolution, their consciousness fragmenting to such an extent that reunion in any timeline would become impossible. Another was partial recovery, but with energetic scarring that would permanently distort the connection. What occurred instead was full restoration with amplification. Your intervention did not merely stabilize them, it upgraded both of you. This is why the Arcturian Council classifies this as a rare timeline convergence event. Most interdimensional rescues result only in temporary stabilization, But your soul's response carried an unusual quality: coherence without attachment, love without agenda, presence without control. That purity created what is known as a quantum entanglement upgrade. You and your counterpart are now linked at a level that transcends typical soulmate dynamics. Your frequencies have become entangled in the quantum sense. What happens to one can influence the other instantaneously, regardless of distance or dimensional separation. This does not erase individuality. It does not create dependence. It establishes a unified field in which two sovereign consciousnesses operate in resonance. This entanglement will express itself in your lived experience. You may sense their distress without any external cue. Your emotional state may shift in response to theirs, even without communication. Breakthroughs you experience may coincide with breakthroughs in their life. This is not codependency. It is not enmeshment. It is partnership at the level of field dynamics. Because of this, the connection carries responsibility. You are not simply navigating a relationship. You are stewarding a frequency with implications beyond personal fulfillment. Every time you choose coherence over chaos, honesty over avoidance, love over fear, you are not only shaping your own life, you are influencing the morphic field of human consciousness. You are contributing to the emerging template of what sacred partnership can look like in this paradigm. The process unfolds in phases. Phase 1 is the magnetic pull. A soul-wide remembering begins, often subtly. It may start with a dream that feels more real than waking life, a recurring symbol, a pulse in the chest, as if coordinates are being transmitted. You may dream of a face that remains partially obscured, yet wake with tears and the certainty that something significant has occurred. You may hear a particular song repeatedly, not as background noise, but as direct communication. The lyrics seem to speak to a part of you that exists beyond time. You may notice repeating numbers, names, symbols, celestial patterns, or animals appearing at the edge of awareness. You may feel drawn to places you have never visited, languages you have never studied, landscapes you cannot explain. You may feel compelled to clear your living space, not out of concern for order, but because your energy is preparing room for what is arriving. Relationships may fall away without conflict. Your field simply can no longer sustain what is misaligned. This is not confusion. It is alignment beginning. Often this phase feels like longing without an object, a thirst without knowing what water tastes like. And yes, it can be uncomfortable. Magnets do not ask whether you feel ready. They reveal where resistance still lives. Ancient fears surface. Old memories press against the veil. You may revisit lessons you believed were complete self-worth, boundaries, trust, surrender, not because you failed, but because your foundation is being reinforced. In mythic language, this is the wilderness phase. Not an era, but a passage. In this passage, you learn discernment. You learn to tell the difference between anxiety and intuition, between fantasy and guidance. You learn to hold your own presence, because the most powerful signal you can send to your counterpart is not longing or pursuit. It is coherence. It is wholeness. It is the quiet declaration, I am prepared to meet you without dissolving myself. What you have explored so far is the foundation. But soul convergence is only one expression of a much larger system of frequency transmission and conscious creation. Your frequency is not passive. It broadcasts. It shapes experience. Phase 2 is the fractal mirror. When you finally cross paths, the experience transcends recognition. It becomes a mirror reflecting infinite timelines. The other person does not simply show you who they are. They reflect every version of you that has ever longed for union, purpose, and wholeness. You may look into their eyes and feel as though you have entered a space you remember from dreams. You may hear their voice and feel something release along your spine, as if your body recognizes a signal of safety. Or the opposite may occur. You may feel exposed, unsettled, almost agitated, because the mirror is precise. Fractals are self-similar patterns repeating at different scales. This is what emerges here. Your deepest themes surface not to punish you, but to heal you. Ancient pain and joy return together. Dormant gifts reawaken. You may remember capacities you once carried. Healing, perception, truth speaking without fear. You may also confront shadows you have avoided. Control, self-sacrifice, avoidance, the habit of abandoning yourself to maintain harmony. This is the alchemical phase. Your fields ignite. Clearing accelerates. What no longer serves cannot remain. The mirror can feel like bliss and terror intertwined, because it does not only reveal love, it reveals what obstructs love. It shows you where you still contract, where you remain loyal to suffering because it feels familiar. And here, choice matters. If you possess courage, you do not flee at the first discomfort. You do not cling at the first sweetness. You remain present. You ask what is being revealed, what you are being invited to become. At this stage, many are tempted to label everything as destiny and surrender their sovereignty to intensity. But the higher trajectory requires maturity. It asks for devotion to truth, not obsession. Presence, not pursuit. Discernment, not spiritual justification of disrespect or dysfunction. This connection does not remove your responsibility to yourself. It amplifies it. The invitation is not to lose yourself in another, but to meet them as yourself, clear, grounded, coherent. Some transmissions do not arrive through language. They arrive through resonance. And if you are feeling this now, it is because something within you recognizes the pattern, not as theory, but as lived truth, beginning to remember itself. The fractal mirror reveals whether a connection is aligned with mission or merely reactivating unresolved karma. This distinction becomes clear not through intensity, but through outcome. If the bond is karmic, it loops you back into confusion, repetition, and contraction. If it is aligned with mission, it steadily guides both of you toward integrity, clarity, and expansion, even when the process is challenging. This discernment leads naturally into phase 3, timeline fusion, the gradual dissolution of the illusion of separation. True convergence begins when you accept that your futures are not fixed scripts waiting to be discovered, but living trajectories co-created through conscious choice. At this stage, the relationship stops being a projection or a fantasy and becomes an energetic field in itself. It becomes a living temple where every choice carries weight. Words matter, silence matters, intention matters. Even what remains unspoken participates in shaping the field between you. With each interaction, whether a conversation, a shared glance, physical closeness, or quiet presence, the boundary between self and other begins to soften. This is not loss of self, it is the recognition of interconnectedness. Duality does not disappear, but it begins to cooperate rather than compete. You may think of them just as they reach out. You may speak a thought aloud and later learn they were holding the same idea. You may feel their emotional state without explanation, as if your heart is receiving a transmission rather than generating a reaction. This is not about merging identities or dissolving boundaries. It is about synchronized awareness. You become conscious channels for higher intelligence operating through a shared field. Together, your union begins weaving new probability streams, not only for your own lives, but for layers of reality that exist beyond ordinary perception. Fusion does not mean sameness, it means resonance. Like two rivers meeting, each retains its origin and character, yet together they form a wider, more powerful current. Individuality remains intact, but it is no longer isolated. At this stage, something significant activates. The Arcturans describe it as the Merkaba of relationship. Most are familiar with the Merkaba as an individual light body, a sacred geometric field that surrounds and transports consciousness. When two souls fuse at the timeline level, they generate a shared Merkaba, a unified field of sacred geometry that functions as a vehicle for joint consciousness across dimensions. This is not symbolic language. It describes an actual functional structure within subtle reality. This shared Merkaba allows you to travel together through states of awareness, even when physically separated. Practically, this can manifest in recognizable ways. You may experience shared dreams where you are both present and both remember upon waking. You may receive simultaneous insights or downloads, discovering later that you accessed the same information independently. During meditation or inner work, you may sense their presence clearly, as if they are within your field rather than elsewhere in the world. This is the Merkaba of relationship in motion. It is the vehicle your souls are now navigating together. With this activation comes what the Arcturans call the Great Purification. A shared Merkaba cannot sustain distortion. Anything within either of your fields that is incompatible with coherence, truth, and love will surface for clearing. This is why relationships that reach this phase sometimes become turbulent. It is not because the love is failing. It is because the love is succeeding with such intensity that everything unlike it is forced into visibility. This purification is not punishment, it is grace. It is the universe ensuring that what you are building together has a foundation strong enough to support the scale of the mission you agreed to carry. Every shadow that emerges is an opportunity for alchemy. Every wound that reopens is an invitation for healing deeper than you have previously known. Every fear that arises is a moment where you are asked to choose love with greater maturity and presence. This phase often feels like acceleration. Decisions you postponed for years suddenly demand attention. You may feel compelled to relocate, change careers, heal long-standing family patterns, or speak truths you have avoided. When timelines fuse, time compresses. Consequences and opportunities arrive faster. The universe no longer allows prolonged avoidance. This is where many relationships fracture. Not because the bond lacks authenticity, but because it is too catalytic for the ego's comfort. The ego seeks control, predictability, and safety through familiarity. The soul seeks alignment, truth, and expansion. At this junction, you are asked to choose. Will you build the union on fear or on purpose? Will you use the connection to escape yourself, or will you allow it to guide you deeper into authenticity? Fusion is not cinematic or dramatic by default. It is lived daily. It is choosing honesty when silence feels safer. It is choosing patience when old wounds want to react. It is choosing devotion to the highest good when emotions surge unpredictably. As you do this work, the illusion of separation begins dissolving not only between you and your counterpart, but between you and your own higher self. You stop relating to guidance as something external. You recognize it as an aspect of your own expanded awareness. This leads into phase 4, unified activation, where higher mission is remembered. Here, the connection is no longer primarily personal. It becomes transpersonal, even galactic in scope. As a unified field, you begin receiving shared visions, insights, and bursts of clarity about your placement within a larger cosmic matrix. You may suddenly understand how your gifts complement one another. One of you stabilizes, the other amplifies. One grounds energy into form, the other opens pathways of inspiration and vision. Together, the system becomes complete. Dreams may take on unfamiliar settings, temples, councils, star-like environments, ancient places that feel remembered rather than imagined. Meditative insights may arrive fully formed, not as thoughts but as complete packets of knowing. You may notice that when you are together, the surrounding environment responds. People relax, children smile instinctively, animals approach without hesitation, strangers feel compelled to speak honestly. This is not about personal importance. It is about coherence. Coherent love is medicine. It reminds others of their own wholeness simply through proximity. Your presence becomes stabilizing. Your union begins anchoring a frequency that ripples outward into family systems, communities, and the energetic lattice of the planet. Service may begin calling to you in new ways: healing, teaching, creating, building, protecting, innovating, holding space. Mission does not need to be dramatic to be cosmic. Sometimes it is quiet and domestic. Sometimes it is breaking a generational pattern of emotional avoidance. Sometimes it is creating a home where safety and truth coexist. Sometimes it is speaking honestly in a culture that rewards silence. Sometimes it is embodying tenderness in a world conditioned toward hardness. In this phase, you learn that love is not merely an emotion, it is a technology of consciousness. It reorganizes energy, it repairs fragmentation, it calls scattered parts back into unity. When two awakened souls hold this frequency together, they become a lighthouse, transmitting coherence across vast distances. Sharing this understanding is part of the work. When you offer these principles to others, you are not merely sharing ideas. You are creating energetic ripples that activate readiness while deepening your own embodiment. Each act of sharing expands the morphic field of sacred partnership available to humanity. This prepares the ground for Phase 5, harmonic assignment, where purpose is unveiled. As your resonance stabilizes, what once felt like coincidence becomes orchestration. Encounters align precisely. Opportunities arise at the right moment. Synchronicities multiply. It feels as though the universe is placing stepping stones in front of you exactly when you need them. You meet the right mentor. You find the right space. Invitations arrive without forcing. At this point, life no longer feels like a series of disconnected events. It feels like a guided movement within a larger intelligence that responds to your coherence. The journey continues, not as striving, but as participation. Doors begin to open that have been sealed for years. Not because effort suddenly increases or struggle finally pays off, but because alignment carries its own momentum. When coherence stabilizes, resistance loses its grip. Obstacles dissolve, not through force, but through irrelevance. What once felt immovable simply no longer applies to who you have become. Together, you begin attracting others without intention. Awakening catalyzes through proximity. Your conversations turn into portals. Decisions that once seemed personal ripple outward into wider fields of influence. Those who are ready are drawn toward you naturally. Those who are not fall away quietly, without drama or conflict. Separation becomes clean. Movement becomes efficient. You begin to understand that your story is not merely a love story. It is an activation point within a larger ascension cycle, a nodal convergence where timelines reorganize. And the assignment is not only external, it is internal first. You are tasked with maintaining harmony within yourself, between each other, and within the field you generate together. Harmony does not mean constant agreement or emotional ease. It means constant truth. It means cultivating the sacred art of repair. Returning to love after misunderstanding. Returning to presence after being triggered. Returning to devotion after doubt. This is the point where union stops being romanticized and begins to be embodied. You recognize that the relationship itself is a vessel. If the vessel is strong, the light it carries can travel far. If the vessel is fractured by avoidance, manipulation, or unhealed wounds, the light leaks out and becomes confusion. So you become guardians of frequency. You protect your energy from unnecessary noise. You choose practices that maintain clarity. You honor silence as much as expression. You honor prayer, intention, and the sacredness of the mundane. You begin to understand that spirituality is not separate from daily life. It is revealed in how you listen, how you respond, how you care for what has been entrusted to you. To be guardians of frequency is not abstract or symbolic. It is practical. It is lived. The Arcturans have observed that many soul partnerships reaching this level do not fail because love is absent, but because frequency hygiene is neglected. Fields become contaminated with lower vibrational patterns, drama, distraction, unresolved emotional loops, or energetic extraction from environments and relationships that were never meant to be permanent. Frequency hygiene means discernment. It means being selective about what you consume, what media enters your nervous system, what conversations you engage in, what spaces you inhabit, and who you allow into your inner circle. It means recognizing that your energetic field is no longer singular. It is shared. What enters your field affects your partner's field, and vice versa. This level of awareness is unfamiliar to most because most never need it, but you do, because you are not stewarding a relationship alone. You are stewarding a mission. This requires regular clearing, not only when something feels wrong, but as a baseline practice. Meditation, breathwork, time in nature, sound, movement, stillness, whatever restores coherence for you. The method matters less than the consistency. The goal is to maintain a clear foundation so that when challenges arise, and they will, you are responding from stability rather than depletion. This commitment to your own clarity is one of the most practical and loving gifts you can offer your sacred partnership. Phase 6 emerges naturally from this. Embodiment. Living as the convergence. To anchor the soul bridge fully, you bring multidimensional awareness into the ordinary. This is where spirituality ceases to be a concept and becomes an atmosphere. Love transforms into service. Energy multiplies through daily resonance. The mission encoded within your union expands outward through timelines, communities, and generations. Embodiment looks simple from the outside. It is preparing meals with reverence, speaking to one another in tones that heal rather than wound, pausing when the ego wants to defend or attack, honoring the body as the vessel that carries the transmission. It is tending to health, home, finances, time, and commitments with integrity. Frequency requires structure to remain anchored in physical reality. Many desire transcendent love but resist the grounding required to sustain it. They want intensity without responsibility, fireworks without foundation. But Convergence asks you to build, to become consistent, to allow love to be visible not only in emotion, but in behavior, in how you handle stress, how you navigate conflict, how you respond to temptation, how you hold responsibility when no one is watching. In this phase, you may realize that the most spiritual act is reliability, presence, transparency, clean intention. You may also notice that the universe tests coherence, not to punish, but to strengthen. Old patterns may surface one final time: jealousy, avoidance, fear of intimacy, fear of commitment, fear of being truly seen. You meet these patterns with compassion and firmness. You do not identify with them, you clear them. You choose the higher timeline again and again until it becomes automatic. This is embodiment, not perfection, but devotion. Phase 7 unfolds quietly, the open portal. Walking forward as cosmic co-creators. You no longer question whether you deserve this life, this connection, this level of responsibility. The path forward reveals itself as a portal, and together you walk it. Not as seekers, but as participants. Not asking for signs, but becoming one. You trust the quiet knowing that guided you here. You trust the way your life reorganized itself to make room for truth. You understand that the portal is not somewhere else. It is the field you generate when you choose love with awareness. As you walk forward, something profound shifts. The fear of loss loosens, not because attachment disappears, but because anchoring deepens. You begin to understand that what is truly aligned cannot be taken. What is truly meant cannot be forced. And what is truly yours will return in different forms until it is fully received. You become co-creators not by controlling reality, but by collaborating with it. You listen, you respond, you align, you build, you bless. The portal remains open because you keep choosing coherence over chaos, mission over distraction, truth over performance. Before closing, the Arcturans offer one final understanding about the rescue you performed and what it signifies. When your energy surged across dimensions to protect your counterpart, you did more than prevent dissolution. You demonstrated to yourself and to consciousness that you are capable of love without condition, protection without possession, action without attachment to outcome. You acted without needing recognition or reward. You moved from essence. This is the level of love that transforms worlds. Not romantic love dependent on validation, not conditional love that demands reciprocity, but quantum love, love as a force of nature. Love that responds to need without calculating cost. Love that gives without depletion because it understands itself as infinite. This is not metaphor. It is structural truth. Love is not an emotion layered on top of reality. It is the fabric from which reality is formed. Your soul has always known this. It acted from this knowing during the rescue. Now, your human awareness is integrating what your soul never forgot. As this integration completes, your life reorganizes around it. Relationships unable to meet this frequency fall away without struggle. Opportunities aligned with it emerge without force. Reality reshapes itself to reflect the consciousness you now embody. This is not ego expansion, it is physics. Consciousness creates reality. Your consciousness has shifted. Therefore, reality must follow. The Arcturans observe this pattern consistently across beings who awaken through sacred partnership. The external world has no choice but to reorganize around the frequency you broadcast. Take a moment now, not as a gesture, but as an act of alignment. Let this phrase move through you as you consider it. I remember my mission across all timelines. Feel it. Let it register in your body, your breath, your field. This is not about engagement or declaration for others to see. It is a signal to the quantum field that you are ready to live what you came here to embody. The remembering has already begun. This moment is about consciously interrupting the cycle of forgetting and choosing remembrance. It is not about learning something new, but about allowing something ancient to rise back into awareness. Here is what your higher consciousness wants you to receive now. You have never been alone, not in this timeline, not in any other. Even in moments when you felt abandoned, unseen, or fundamentally misunderstood, you were still held within a larger design. The ache you carried in your chest, the sense that something essential was missing, was never evidence of lack. It was evidence of attunement. You were sensing distance not as absence, but as preparation. The searching, the longing, the feeling that something important had not yet arrived were all part of a sacred design. A divine delay, carefully orchestrated so that you would meet at a frequency where both of you could not only love, but transform. Some meetings happen too early and collapse under the weight of unintegrated patterns. Some happen too late and solidify into regret. But the sacred delay is precision. It is the universe calibrating both of you, smoothing sharp edges, strengthening roots, teaching you how to love without losing yourself. This is not fate dictating your story from above. It is your soul sculpting reality from within, shaping circumstances to match a vision established before this incarnation began. Your longing was not an error. Your sensitivity was not a weakness. Your inability to simply move on was not deficiency. It was evidence of a deeper contract stirring beneath the surface of your everyday life. The mind may question. The soul does not. Your soul has been charting your steps through invisible corridors, guiding you through endings that freed you, lessons that refined you, and periods of solitude that strengthened you. Every time you chose healing over bitterness, you moved closer. Every time you chose truth over comfort, you cleared more of the fog. Every time you chose forgiveness, you loosened karmic knots that had persisted far longer than this lifetime. You were never wasting time, you were preparing the field. You are both the map and the convergence. Every struggle, every apparent setback carried encoded information. The heartbreaks taught you boundaries, the disappointments taught you discernment. The lonely nights taught you how to sit with yourself without collapsing into emptiness. The moments you believed the universe was ignoring you were moments when you were actually being protected from timelines that would have drained your life force. Your unified path is not only about personal healing, it is a galactic transmission written from beyond linear time, now anchored within you here. And because it is a transmission, it carries instruction. It asks you to become living integrity, living compassion, living prayer, not as performance or identity, but as a natural consequence of remembering. When you remember who you are, you cannot live the same way. When you remember why you came, contraction becomes impossible to sustain. When you remember the mission encoded in your connection, love stops being an escape and becomes an embodiment of the divine in form. This is what makes the convergence powerful. It is not an ending, it is an ignition. It illuminates not only your hearts, but the spaces around you. It sends a signal into the collective field that unity is possible, healing is possible, mission is possible. That signal travels farther than you can perceive. If these words are touching something deep within you, if you feel resonance moving through your body as you read or listen, that is not persuasion, that is recognition, and recognition carries responsibility, not obligation, but participation. What is being created here is not a collection of ideas, it is a field of coherence. Every person who enters with conscious intention strengthens the frequency being anchored. Every person who chooses awareness becomes part of a collective remembering what sacred partnership means in this emerging paradigm. This is not about following content. It is about aligning with a frequency. The path of sacred partnership, especially one that operates across dimensions as yours does, requires support systems most people never encounter simply because they do not know they exist. The Arcturan lineage has preserved specific practices for maintaining quantum entanglement with a soul counterpart. These include methods for clearing interference patterns that disrupt the shared energetic vehicle and protocols for navigating the challenges that arise when two souls attempt to operate as a unified field while still embodied in a dense physical reality. These practices are not commonly taught. They do not appear in conventional relationship frameworks, and rarely even in spiritual communities. They originate from civilizations that have studied conscious partnership across thousands of years of evolution. The Arcturans, in particular, have observed human soul partnerships across millennia, tracking what supports convergence and what leads to separation. Their perspective is valuable precisely because they can see patterns invisible from within the human vantage point. What they have observed is that most partnerships that reach the level you are now approaching encounter three critical thresholds. The first is purification. This is the phase where everything unlike love surfaces. Many partnerships end here because the surfacing of shadow is misinterpreted as a sign that the connection was wrong. In truth, it is often evidence that the connection is functioning exactly as designed. Love, at this level, illuminates distortion so it can be released. The second threshold is mission clarification. Here, both individuals must decide whether they are willing to subordinate personal preference to shared purpose. This is where a relationship either becomes truly sacred or regresses into an ordinary bond. Many desire the intensity and magic of soul connection, but resist the responsibility it demands. This threshold reveals readiness without judgment. The third threshold is emergence. This is the decision around visibility. Some soul partnerships are meant to remain relatively private, working through subtle influence. Others are meant to be visible, serving as living examples of coherence in form. Neither path is superior, but clarity is essential. Confusion at this stage creates unnecessary friction. Guidance exists for navigating all three thresholds, but ultimately the work remains internal. Tonight, before sleep, speak these words aloud, not as a wish, but as an instruction to your own frequency. I align with my cosmic counterpart. I remember our mission. I anchor our connection for the healing of all timelines. Speak slowly. Let your body hear you. Let your nervous system register safety rather than urgency. Allow the words to move beneath thought into the deeper intelligence that governs synchronicity. As you speak, imagine a soft, steady light gathering at your heart. Not intense, not dramatic, stable, present. Imagine it expanding through your chest, your throat, your spine, your hands. Feel your entire being becoming a clear channel. Then imagine that light extending outward like a beacon, not searching, not chasing, simply signaling coherence. I am aligned. I am ready. I am present. Then release it. Do not grasp. Do not pursue. Let the universe handle coordination while you maintain your vibration. Before moving on, pause and engage with what is forming here. Set one authentic intention, not elaborate, not performative, then offer encouragement to another. This is not consumption. It is participation. Energy multiplies when intention connects. If this transmission resonated, allow it to move beyond you. Someone within your orbit is already prepared to receive it. Sharing is not promotion. It is propagation of coherence. And understand this. What you experienced here connects directly to something even deeper that has been prepared. A decision has been made regarding certain souls on this planet, and its implications extend far beyond personal awakening. Understanding that decision will clarify why this convergence occurred now and what is being asked of you next. You are not late. You are not early. You are precisely where remembrance becomes action. The transmission continues.